Thank you for joining me. I'm Dana Palmblad. I am the Segment Sales Director for Leadership and Professional Development at Kaplan. And we specialize in helping organizations to drive beyond individual skill performance to create real overall organizational lift. And we do that by providing them with diagnostic tools and learning interventions that are specific to solving specific issues. And we're going to see more about that as I go forward here. But we are looking, in this case, at how to identify and address risk in a very specific situation with an organization that is focusing on how to address those risks within cybersecurity. But again, this can be applied to really any part of your business where you may have potential performance gaps. And the way that we do that is with a diagnostic tool at the beginning to help us identify individuals, cohorts, pieces of the organization where people are not necessarily applying the knowledge that they have in a way that's meaningful to the business. So we all know people who are extremely competent. They have the technical knowledge and the ability to do their job and do it well, but they don't necessarily have the confidence that they need to be able to drive to the performance that's expected, or to be advocates in the organization to help coach others and move towards those goals. On the flip side, we also know a lot of people within organizations, they exist everywhere, who behaviorally are very, very confident in terms of what they do, but they may not really be competent, and that's a danger. So we'll explore that a little more as we go forward. The case that we're looking at here is a global insurance company that was very concerned about cybersecurity. It's in the news everywhere. Over 9 billion data records have been stolen since 2013. Almost 5.5 million records of data are being accessed or exposed on a daily basis going forward. So this is a big issue. And it's one where we really can very easily illustrate this idea of technical competence versus competence at the individual and organizational level. So when we look at best practices in cyber, it really becomes kind of a checklist. There is this cybersecurity framework that everybody has to adhere to, that they test on annually to be able to say, yes, we have all these things in place. We know how to identify, we know how to protect, we know how to detect if something has occurred, we know how to recover from that. And that's all well and good, but you can have all the technology, policy, and processes in place that you can imagine, and at the end of the day, there's still something very critical missing in terms of making sure that you're secure, and that's the human element. It's like all other aspects of our business. It's people that make the difference in terms of what we can or can't accomplish and in terms of the risk that we face as an organization. So by looking at the current practices, we can have preventive technology. We can adopt a hacker's mindset. We can base all of this around specific policies, but we don't integrate it with the security needs in terms of the business opportunities that we're pursuing. We don't integrate it in terms of considering the internal attitudes that individuals have about security, and we don't bridge the gap between their personal beliefs, what we're trying to organize at the company, and what they may even be doing at home when they get off work. Specifically, I think about the disaster announcement that occurred in Hawaii, which caused a great deal of fear and just wreaked havoc for a period of time. And that was all traced back to an individual who had posted something on social media where he had Post-it notes with his passwords appearing behind him on a computer screen when he was filming whatever he wanted to put out on social media. So again, it just comes down to, are all of the security policies and practices in place? Yes. Do we have the technology in place to support our organization? Yes. But how do people apply that knowledge? How do they actually interact and do their job every day? That's where risk can occur. So we want to work with these organizations to help them identify these areas where they may have risk. Again, whether it's related to their financial acumen, their business acumen, in this case, it's really about cybersecurity. So we take a consultative approach to go through scoping, to have stakeholder interviews, to create design scenarios that will allow us to put individuals into real-world situations where they're faced with decisions that they have to make on a daily basis, and are they going to make the right decision, and how sure are they about that decision that they're about to make. We review that, obviously go through pilot programs. It's an iterative process to get us where we need to be to make sure we're going to get the right information that we need. And then from there we can design these learning solutions, whether it's coaching one-on-one with a manager, distance-based learning, classroom learning. We work with the organizations to design the right learning environment to help address these problems. So when we spoke to this organization, we explored what are the key drivers that are creating the concern. And of course, it always goes back to behavior, for one thing. It goes to the culture. How well aligned are the policies, procedures? How well aligned is the training with the senior leaders? What are the key business drivers that they're facing? What are the organizational priorities that are of a concern? And then most importantly, what are the risks that are currently in place given the way that we're approaching this issue? And what they told us was that there are foundational practices and policies that aren't always being followed. There's poor overall management from time to time where we have systems that are unaccounted for. We may not have proper inventory. We're giving too much autonomy to people, so there's no real accountability for the things that they may or may not be doing on a daily basis. And in some cases, there's some greenwashing going on where if you take a report within a given cohort, within a given part of the organization, the manager looks at it, sees a few things that don't look quite as pretty as they would like. They doctor it a bit, make it look better, pass it up. Maybe that happens again at another level. And eventually what you end up with is an organization that believes we have cybersecurity nailed, we have no risk, we're in great shape. But in fact, that's not the case because they have people in the organization who may be doing things that are going to put them at risk on a daily basis. So there's this threat that increases as we improve or increase our digital presence, particularly in organizations that are working globally, where there may be different cultures. We'll talk about that. And there's this cultural clash from time to time between the cybersecurity team and the rest of the business where people feel like, look, this is really keeping me from being able to do my job properly. I'm glad that you have these policies in place, but at the end of the day, I'm not so sure they're all really that important. If I can get something done easier by avoiding this particular policy, I'm going to do it. So we looked at their key drivers and the competencies that needed to be, or that underline those key drivers, from their business focus to a risk assessment to the policies and procedures themselves. But then even more importantly, we started to get into advocacy. Are we giving people the ability, let's say at the end of the day at 5 o'clock when no one's around and maybe a superior walks in and tells me to do something that I know is in violation of a security policy, am I going to feel like I'm in a culture where I can speak up and say, no, that's really not a good thing for us to do? Or am I going to go ahead and comply? And if I comply, am I exposing the organization? And then to get to the personal practices again of how do I take this back into my personal life? Is there anything that I'm doing in social media? Are there things I'm doing outside of the job that could be exposing my organization to risk? And from that, we then begin to put together scenarios. What we want to accomplish here is to put people in real life situations. Make it very real in terms of here is a situation that you may face. How would you respond to it? And we give them the ability to say, yes, that's right, or no, that's wrong. Yes, that's true, or no, that's false. But we also give them the ability to say, how confident am I in my response? So again, back to the person that's highly confident, but not very competent, could be a huge issue. And if we have someone that's very, very competent, but they don't have a lot of confidence, how are they going to advocate within this organization because they're not really sure that they do in fact understand things as well as they do. So by going through this, if you look at our survey example, we give them a number of scenarios and say, in this situation, is this response or is this choice that you're making a good choice, true or false? And then how certain are you of that? So if we look at the first question, they're saying, I think this is false, but I'm really not that sure. Or on the second one, I am very confident that this is true. And as we compile all that information organizationally, we can then begin to look at the individuals and the different parts of the organization and identify areas where we need to take action to support better learning and more importantly, better application of learning on the day-to-day job. So here's an example of one of the heat maps that we can create, and we can do this by, in terms of an individual, they're across the top. If you look vertically down at these columns, or horizontally across, you're looking at the different topics that are being covered. And we can very easily, if you look at the top, say we've got, in terms of our assessment of risk, we have an area where we seem to have a lot of people who have the wrong answer, but are quite certain that it's the right answer. That could be a huge problem. Now, without going into great detail, you also see areas down here at the bottom where you've got a lot of green. These are areas where we might be able to leverage hidden talent, hidden advocates to help us in terms of supporting our risk going forward. So the chart at the right just shows, high degree of confidence, right answer, green, down to high degree of confidence, wrong answer, red at the bottom. And so we can gather that information and then present individual reports that tell people, here is where you did well, here are some areas where you could improve, and by the way, click here and we'll take you out to some learning that'll help you better understand this issue. That's one approach. We also, from there, have the ability to develop all kinds of learning interventions that involve, classroom training, online training, workshop training, working with your manager in terms of coaching. The object here is to go beyond just trying to train everybody the same way, give them the same book of knowledge, and really get down to how well are they then able to translate that into their job on a regular basis. So in summary, our diagnostic approach is a mechanism that assesses both confidence and competence of a team or a group or a population, and it's across all industries in business. We're looking at one specific instance here, but if you really think about the concept, this can be applied in many, many ways to identify areas of risk and to identify opportunities for overall improvement. The tool provides key insights to help mitigate that risk and shape our learning interventions, and our approach explores the key drivers for your organization. So this isn't something that you just bring off the shelf, it's one size fits all. It's very much part of a process that we go through with you to identify what you're trying to accomplish, where you think you may have risks, how do we align around the executive team to make sure that those things that you feel need to be expressed, learned, and applied on a daily basis, that those things for your business are being designed the right way. So again, thank you very much. I hope that if you have any questions, you will contact us. You can reach me at dana.palmblad@kaplan.com, and I would love to answer any of your questions or dive deeper into this with you if you'd like to learn more. Thank you.